My name is Jamie Piles. I joined Samaritan in December of 1996. We were homeschooling our kids, and we were already thinking outside the world's box, if you will. And I saw a little tiny classified ad about this new kind of idea I'd never heard of before. My first reaction was, that's the kind of thing that we would do, isn't it? And so I finally called the number, talked to them, and the more I asked them questions, the more I liked their answers.
You sit in church week after week, embracing the truth of God's word. You believe the gospel and claim Jesus Christ as your Lord. Yet you continue to struggle with pornography. You feel like a hypocrite, returning to the sin you hate that mocks the God you love. You desperately wonder, is lasting freedom even possible? Yes, you can overcome pornography, but not alone. 2 Timothy 2:22 says, "Now flee from youthful lusts and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace with those who call on the Lord from a pure heart." Only by repeatedly running from sin to Christ with other believers can you hope to enjoy lasting freedom. You can live with purity and integrity. Take courage, seek accountability, and do whatever is necessary. Get equipped at accountable2you.com.
Hey y'all, this is what, like kind of like a cross-politic emergency, so?
I guess, because Pastor Toby's not here, so it really is an emergency.
It really is an emergency.
We need a pastor on this show at all times.
Yeah.
That's why I can leave, but we cannot have the show without a pastor. We always we definitely need a pastor. Last time Pastor Toby was gone, we started calling Baptist transgenders and stuff like that. It was really bad.
We did get in a lot of trouble, didn't we? Yeah, sorry, Pastor. But we do got a pastor's grandson on. Does that maybe help?
I don't think that's how it works.
That's not how it works. Okay, all right. Well,
thank you. Rory's like, no.
I'm just going to bring it in. This is just kind of a special show because Rory was able to kind of do this on the fly. But Nate's son, Pastor Doug Wilson's grandson, Rory, you guys have probably heard it on the news. Rory Wilson goes to Columbia University over on the East Coast and stood in front of the I don't know, you call them like the Hamas rallies or the Palestinian rallies. What do you call them, Rory? What's going on?
I guess I've just been calling it the encampment because most of the time it's just been an encampment in the middle of Columbia's campus.
Okay.
So
did you see the Babylon Bee came out today? Basically kind of discovered where all the money's coming from. Obviously George Soros is in there. Apparently Bill Gates Foundation's been funding some of this. But there's about 5 or 6 organizations that have been involved in funding these protests or whatever you call them.
Yeah, the money seems to be coming from all over the place, but also pretty typical sources. So I'm not really surprised. I wouldn't necessarily say pro-Hamas protest because a lot of students really, if you were to ask them about it, would not be pro-Hamas. They're just using imagery that I think signals support for Hamas, but
okay.
I think the majority of students would try to distance themselves from it.
Yeah. Okay, can we start somewhere else real quick? Rory, why are you out in Columbia? Can you explain that part? Why are you there, first of all? What's going on?
I definitely wouldn't recommend Columbia to most people. Personally, I think it was the right choice as far as just giving myself a challenge.
NSA wasn't a challenge for you, huh? You're like, you know what? Columbia looks like some ground to be taken out there.
He didn't need an academic challenge.
Okay.
He needed a social, political challenge.
So can you work that out for me? Kind of just, why are you out of Columbia? What's the challenge that you look forward to there? And then I want to break into actually the story of what happened.
Yeah, well, and I don't mean to say that back home there aren't challenges, that there is an academic challenge, and there aren't, like, wherever you are, there are challenges, and to try to grow in your faith, grow as a person. But for me, I think it was, well, how would I say? Like, it definitely has just been really healthy, I think, for me to try to learn how to interact with people outside of where I grew up. See kind of the state of a lot of my generation, because I've definitely found that Moscow was not representative of a lot of people's experiences, including Christians from all over the place. So I'd say it's given me a lot more gratitude for what I had growing up.
Yeah.
And it's just hard to really know, to process exactly what's going on apart from seeing it. So like I have had some very good classes at Columbia, because even with it being a very leftist institution, there are some very good scholars still in certain fields, though you definitely need to pick and choose who you study with.
Yeah.
So I could talk to you about that probably this whole show, but that's not why people are listening. What they're really listening for is to find out. So let's just assume for a second that the most people that are hearing about this are just catching glimpses of what's happening on the news at college campuses. And so they're only hearing a part of the story of what's happening. Could you take us into the narrative, the story where you were at? What happened on campus where you're at? How did it get started? Before we started seeing the videos of you standing in front of the door, what was the lead up to that, and how did we get there?
Yeah, so protests on campus basically started on October 8th, right after the attack by Hamas on Israel. A bunch of people came out onto campus with Palestinian flags protesting Israel in support of Gaza, in support of Hamas in that instance. I'd say that's what made me probably the angriest this entire year, was people coming out with that sort of imagery right after brutal terrorist attacks. Absolutely inexcusable.
Rory,
even if someone was fully,
I got a question for you about that. So October 7th was the where the Hamas attacked Israel.
Yeah.
And you said October 8th, people came out in the middle of university campuses with Palestinian flags and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think that showed any sort of coordination between even the conflict that happened over in Gaza and America? I mean, in other words, where did they get those flags all of a sudden?
I don't know. I guess I don't really remember how many flags they had then. There were tons of people with homemade signs and that sort of thing marching around campus. So that's when it all kicked off. Yeah. And that is, I think, when it was also very, very unsympathetic to a lot of people, including here at Columbia, for very obvious reasons, because a lot of people here have Israeli family. There are a lot of Israeli students. New York is a very Jewish city. And so it caused a lot of people to be quite scared, because a lot of people, there are people with connections to Israel. I have a friend who had a friend who died. So at least one degree of separation from people who'd been casualties in this war. So that continued, the protests periodically continued, and they really started to pick up pace this semester as the civilian casualties started to mount in Gaza. And which I think that's also a little bit understandable why people would be upset. It's obviously there are plenty of Palestinian students too at Columbia. So the sort of suffering that you see as a result of the war really is very tragic. And so it kind of, I think, had a period where it had enjoyed more support among the university because of kind of the current state of the conflict. And then the police came and arrested some students when they were in camp. They were camping in the middle of campus, and that also spurred a lot of people to support the protests who previously hadn't. And then it just became so disruptive and so extreme that I think people started to get tired of it all. And the university lost patience and started suspending students. And all of it, if I were to take a couple steps back, it doesn't surprise me at all. A lot of what people are doing is just what they've been taught in the classroom here. As far as post-colonial radical Marxist theory,
right.
They have this long course that every student has to take called Contemporary Civ, where you read works of political philosophy, starting with Plato, Aristotle, going through the Bible, some Aquinas, some medieval thinkers, Islamic thinkers, going into John Locke, Hobbes, all that. But then once you get to the end of the course, it starts getting much more radical, and reading guys like Frantz Fanon, who advocate for basically just brutal, violent revolution in the struggle against colonialism, various things. So it's very much something that's taught actively within parts of the university. And so the fact that people are latching onto political causes where they can apply their Marxist theory is no surprise to me.
So it's not necessarily something where it's like the main thing is the cause. The main thing is, we get a chance to insert Marxism right here. Let's go.
Let's
practice what we're being taught. So then, okay, so there's a lot of conversation about the building. What's the building that they wanted to get in and take over, and why particularly that building? And how did you hear about this and get in front of it?
So specifically, they had an encampment in the middle of our main quad that they were there for a long time. Finally, the university said that they were going to be suspending all students who are in the encampment. And they decided to take over this hall, Hamilton Hall, which is just the main building for classes. It's got some administrative offices, but also mostly classes. So they, in the middle of the night, had someone sneak in before the building closed to then let in bunch of other people to take over the building and barricade it so that they could occupy it for, I don't know how long they were wanting to go, probably as long as they could, or until the university gave into their demands, which were to divest from any sort of investments in their endowment that connected to Israel, to just a number of different things.
Oh, so they actually had demands. This is like...
They had lots of demands for the university, many of which were pretty unrealistic. Columbia has a dual degree program with Tel Aviv University. And they have a global center in Tel Aviv because they've got centers around the world: Nairobi, Paris, Tel Aviv, Sao Paulo. Mm-hmm. And so they were wanting the university to sever all ties with Israel, cancel their programs, can't close their center in Tel Aviv, divest any investments that had connection to Israel, which would include any tech industry things like Google, Microsoft, because Google has offices in Israel. So they were, the university was trying to negotiate with them, but they were not bending. And so it just ultimately escalated to the point where they were taking over campus facilities. But this is why they took over Hamilton Hall, is they're trying to have a callback to the 1968 Vietnam protests at Columbia, where it was pretty crazy then. It's something like 700 students were arrested.
For taking over the same hall?
Yep.
Okay. And then...
So they're trying to cast themselves into this vision of continuing a legacy of protest, of leftist movements. Yeah.
And then you ended up, I don't even know what time at night, but you ended up standing in front of the mob at the door of the hall and just kind of standing right in front of the door.
Well, how you got there?
So that was like 1 a.m, and I had already gotten into bed, but I hadn't fallen asleep. And I'm in a group chat with a number of friends with some other conservative students. And one of my friends just sent out a notification to everyone saying that people were taking over Hamilton Hall. And then my roommate and a friend of his got me out of bed. And we ran over to see what was happening after midnight.
Bro,
and so they had already smashed windows. They'd already barricaded the inside of the doors.
Okay.
But they were taking these steel tables in a public seating area to barricade the outside of the doors. And so all their human chains that they had blocking off other people from the front of the building had to part ways to let the tables through. And so that's when my friend and I came to the front of the building. It happened very it was very much spur of the moment. I don't even remember what I was thinking exactly for a lot of it.
I know. I'm going to go in front of the mob.
I was like, did you?
I got in front of them.
Yeah.
My friend Charles, who was with me, when he saw them carrying the tables, just flipped out and latched onto one of them and trying to prevent them from taking it. And so I just went with them. So I think we might have just been kind of carried up to the front.
That's funny.
He's like, I'm surprised. You can call your dad and be like, Dad, listen, it's about to get crazy. Just want to let you know. All right, I'll talk to you later. Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know. This is where I'm actually a little frustrated with Rory.
Okay.
Is because I got arrested back in 2020, and then 2 weeks later, Rory upstages me with Stickergate. And totally like him and his younger brother Seamus just totally upstaged me. And then Rory's like he's like, this is some sort of competition to him. He's like, I got to compete.
He's like, I'm gonna try to get arrested in another state.
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna go. And then so now that same high school kid that I knew that protested my arrest and did great with Stickergate, now he's in Columbia doing his thing.
Rory, I got to ask you. So there's a lot of people who are seeing this nationally, and you've probably seen some of the social media conversations where a lot of people are saying, you know what, dude. Let them take the building, let them burn it down, just let it all go and whatever. It's a liberal university. What's your response to something like that? Because you're saying, oh, they're taking over the hall. I'm going to show up there. And they're like, no. Let it go.
Well, it's not like they're going to actually take over the hall in the long term. Something was going to happen. It's more just a matter of, nobody had been standing up to them at all. And
incredible.
So I'm under no illusions that Columbia is a very corrupt institution. I don't have much hope for it. I don't have almost no hope for it in the long term. Well, even just the short term, it's definitely a mess. And so I'm not going to lay myself out to try to maximize its influence in the U.S.
Right.
Or anything, to try to prolong its power, because it still has quite a lot of influence and power as far as its connections to elite institutions and just levers of power. So I'm not doing anything to try to prevent Columbia from losing its influence. I'm just like, as when there's a mob, when the rule of law is being completely touted and they're smashing buildings and they're trying to bully people into complying with ridiculous demands in line with this radical Marxist theory, which I think is repugnant. I think I should stand against that publicly. Ultimately, at the time, I didn't know if the police were going to show up. So it was more, I was thinking that if I can stand here, it will make it easier for campus security and police to deal with the situation when they get onto the scene.
And did you call him? Did you call campus security and police?
Yeah, I know a guy who was calling 911 when my friend was getting dragged off, saying that there was assault happening. No, like I have other friends who made 911 calls. I called campus security immediately afterwards, and nothing.
No response from like your police and your campus security. Zero response.
Yeah, not really any response. Well, they answered my call. They gave me the impression that police were going to come. And then they never followed up.
Oh my gosh!
So we're on our own. Okay, that's good to know.
Does my answer make sense though? It's not like I'm laying out for maximizing Columbia's power or something. No. As much as these people are, it's a mob, and they're standing for some really bad ideology that I don't agree with, and so I don't regret at all making a public statement against it.
Yeah, Rory, what would you say to those people? Because some other people are also trying to chalk this up as like, hey, it's just free speech. You know, why are you against them and their pro-Palestinian free speech?
It's not free speech when they're smashing buildings. And at this point now, my commencement is canceled.
No.
So they completely derailed the end of the semester.
And we let them.
For everyone at the university. They helped instigate this sort of movement across the entire country, across different
Was Columbia the first one that started?
Yeah, Columbia is kind of the epicenter of most of this.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's not like this stuff wasn't completely benign by any stretch. And I don't think if they had within the legal parameters protested and supported Palestine, even like, I guess all power to them. I disagree. I definitely disagree with how they understand what's happening. But that would be a different situation. This wasn't just free speech.
You know, Roy, I got to ask you, so what's been the fallout? You know, sometimes when you see someone, and we saw it here when we took a stand in COVID and, you know, we decided we're going to protest, it brought a lot of, and they brought a lot of people out saying, maybe we should be standing up too and not just let these dictators roll all over us. And so we started seeing some pushback in the culture side. Has any other good fallout come from this, from people seeing you guys stand there in front of the doors and say, no, not like this?
Yeah. And I think because of, well, I, for one, have gotten a lot of different messages from people thanking me for taking the stand, like quite a number from people from all over the place. I have been surprised how this has been pretty much a bipartisan thing. Even if conservatives seem to be much more sympathetic, a lot of more centrist left people seem to also appreciate what we did.
Oh, interesting.
So, especially in the Jewish community. So I've gotten, like, I got a message on LinkedIn from this guy who is a pretty high up Democratic operative for decades, an older Jewish guy who was thanking me for standing up against the mob. And so I, like, personally, it's been really surprising to me how much positive response I've gotten. Just, it seems like a lot of people were very discouraged by seeing a lot of the, like, what I would say is pro-Hamas rhetoric. Even if you asked individual students, and it'd be only the most radical people would support Hamas, a lot of the imagery that's being used is very, very extreme. Like, a lot of students don't even know what they're doing. Like, there's this one chant in Arabic that was chanted in the encampment here that translated meant rise, 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 rise the revolution from the water to the water, which from the river to the sea. There is no God but Allah, and the martyr is Allah's beloved.
Right.
And so you have all these students chanting about there is no God but Allah and the martyr, and praising Islamic martyrdom.
Sounds
like that. It's crazy.
So, man, you know, but boots on the ground and getting the temperature directly, what do you think is going to be next? Like, how do you think this is going to end?
With the Israeli conflict,
no, just on the campus, as the students are kind of being blindly led, and you got people there who think they're doing a good thing. You know, we've kind of been through this in history before. I just wonder, like, you know, is a campus saying, you know what, we better figure out how to do something. This is going to get ugly.
Well, I think that's already been what's happening. Like, Columbia's completely shut down campus. I can't even go onto campus right now.
Yeah.
And so they're just making sure that nothing crazy happens for the rest of the semester. And from what I can tell, there have been university responses in other places. I guess that the most intense stuff is already over on campuses, especially reaching the end of the semester, going into the summer, and other schools might just peter out in their protests.
Rory, didn't you were a COVID baby? You were supposed to graduate during COVID from high school.
Yep.
Didn't your graduation get canceled because of COVID?
Well, Logos ended up still having a graduation, but it definitely was modified.
Yeah. So most people,
most of my peers didn't.
They didn't have graduation, and now they're at Columbia and not going to get another graduation.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Roy, the time we have left with you here, real quick, what is the status of your current court case? How much can you talk about it?
Stickergate. Where's Stickergate at?
Where are we at with this? Oh, Pastor Toby's here. Come on in, Pastor.
It's, well, I don't have a whole lot to say on it. We're currently still in the Idaho Court of Appeals waiting on we've already presented arguments, if I understand correctly, since this happens pretty independently of me at this point. So
the Court of Appeals has heard both sides now, and we're just waiting on the Court of Appeals. I think it's three judges to determine which way it should go.
We're in the Court of Appeals. That's where we're at. Okay.
Out of city of Moscow.
Wow.
And the city of Moscow has now washed their hands of it and has the state, which is Raul Labrador, who's a conservative AG, now defending our city against Rory.
Rory, were you selling drugs?
Nope.
He was slinging stickers.
This can't be. We can't be going to the Court of Appeals because you put a sticker on a pole that had hundreds of other stickers on there. That's not what we're talking about.
It is what we're talking about.
Was there drugs in the stickers?
Like acid scratch.
Was there illegal
stickers?
Was it an acid scratch sticker? What was in the stickers?
Satire.
Hey man,
people don't like satire.
That's so good.
Satire is very, very dangerous, man. It is very, very dangerous. I guess this is insane. So, what are you charged with again? Posting something illegally? What's the charge?
Posting on a pole without permission. So,
some sort of marketing advertising ordinance that he broke.
Yeah,
we are wasting tax dollars on this.
Oh, 100%.
Yes, we are.
4 years. He's going on 4 years.
It's still going.
September will be 4 years, bro.
It must be nice not to have any bad guys in Moscow, Idaho, or in Idaho, period. It must be really nice. Like there must be no.
I sat in the same courtroom as Koberger, so it's not like any.
My goodness.
Shut up. All right. So we just need to be.
We do have some crime, don't we?
Man.
Watching that satire get you in trouble, bro. That is insane. All right, bro.
Yeah. So with this, we went through the local court, we went through the district court, and the Idaho Supreme Court didn't take the case up. So we're in the Court of Appeals. We would have one more appeal to the Supreme Court, Idaho Supreme Court, if they don't take it up. Technically, if they took it up and then they gave us a negative response, we could appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, but I highly doubt that's going to happen.
I've had friends with drug charges and gun charges that have had easier cases to deal with and not been
stickers.
Not stuck to it. And then yet here you are with stickers and
our chief police,
no drugs in them.
Our new chief of police is going to just be doing his job for us.
Well, Rory, appreciate you, brother. God bless you. Thanks for coming on to the show. And we're going to be praying for you because I don't think this is over. We've already got an introduction of what the next couple of years is going to be. You're going to be dealing with the law a lot, obviously. So thanks, man. Have a good one.
Well, my pleasure. And Columbia's been a crazy place. So I don't really recommend it to people, but
I'm glad you're out there. If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This